Hi, welcome back to another episode of Project Stargate Friends Research. Today's date is February the 15th, 2023, and we are certainly glad to have you all with us. Today, we have a special guest researcher, Russ Kellett. He's back to join us, and I'm very, very thankful to have him, and thank you for being with us again, Russ. Yeah, we're really glad to have you, my friend. At any rate, we have today we're going to be talking about the chain of events that's occurred over the past week or so, and it's been an extraordinary set of events. We had there seemed to be a catalyst of some sort when we had a spy balloon from China that went over Montana, and it went over the South Carolina coast where it was shot down, and it was a spy balloon. It was not anything anomalous per se, but that seemed to be the catalyst of these extraordinary events that happened. It included 3 UFOs allegedly shot down, and we got some really exciting conversation coming up for this. And without further ado, I want to hand the floor over to Mr. Michael. And then we're going to, after we talk about each incident, all of us, we can all give our input on what happened. And Michael, I'm going to give the floor to you.
All right. Well, basically, as we all know, it's been a pretty interesting week and a half, almost 2 weeks now, where we've been getting more and more major either information coming from other countries where they are also seeing objects in the sky and things like that that are being shot down. But generally, everything started around February 4th, would have been when everything began, where the Chinese spy balloon invaded U.S. airspace, right?
Right.
Got shot down over the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of South Carolina, and it apparently had drifted in from Idaho. That balloon was apparently the size of about 3 buses, and it was cruising at an altitude of about 60 to 65,000 feet, right? And the Antony Blinken, I think he's the Secretary of State, was supposed to be going on a visit to China, and that incident caused him to cancel that trip to China, because apparently they were going to be going over there to talk to them about what's going on in Russia and the Ukraine and things like that. A lot of officials believe that object was surveilling U.S. bases. But the following Monday, Chinese officials maintained that the craft itself was of civilian origin, but they also maintain that unauthorized objects or balloons had also flown over from the U.S. over areas like Beijing and a bunch of their military bases, especially one of them that's supposedly nuclear, but it's kind of, you have information of saying that it's a nuclear base or it isn't a nuclear base. So it's kind of 50-50 on what you're going for from there. So let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, let's do.
So it's 50-50 pointing the finger of going, well, you're doing this and you're doing this, but really what's going on? I think they're just trying to pass the blame off something bigger that they may be doing or something bigger that we might be doing. But at the same time, it doesn't give any reasoning as to the events that were to follow this. Because a lot of places are trying to point the idea that, oh, they're all balloons. But specific testimony of witnesses and pilots that had shot down the other objects beg to differ on the fact of it being balloons. So anybody who's willing to take the floor on that, feel free to go right ahead.
So I'll kick it off with this, Michael. After that spy balloon was shot down off the coast of South Carolina, I believe the first incident was off the Alaskan coast, and they've been really. I guess we can start with that. They've been very vague about what the pilot says he shot. He said that the pilot says something to the effect of, "Well, it didn't look like the balloon that we shot down, but it didn't. No, what he didn't actually say it was a balloon, and he said it may or may not be manned." I found that really interesting because these pilots they're trained observers in the military. For when I was in the military, that's one of the things that you learn is situational awareness. You have to have that number, whether you're a pilot, whether you're an infantryman, whether no matter what you do, you have to have that level of situation awareness and be able to identify things. The fact that the pilot was so vague and either tells me that he didn't know what the hell he shot down over Alaska, or he knew what it was and was told to keep quiet about it. Russ, have you had anything? What are your thoughts on this situation? I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, to be quite honest, we've had quite a number of reports coming in for the past couple of weeks, and I usually deal with Kingdom.
Hey Russ, I think we lost you there, my friend. You broke up a little bit. I'm sorry. I apologize. Could you repeat that?
Yeah. For the past 2 weeks, we've had quite a number of UFO reports that have come in around the United Kingdom, and the last reports I had yesterday was reports of objects being seen at a place in North Wales. So, we are aware, and we've been aware of these objects, sort of like for 2 weeks. But also, for the past couple of years, we've been watching an area in North Wales around the coastal area there of this Tic Tac object that my ex-girlfriend was filming. And, the papers were going with this story about this Tic Tac, amazing footage. And to be quite honest, very grainy, it could have been anything, where my ex-girlfriends were quite a good photograph, And then they turned around and they said, oh, this is a current, sort of like news from Pentagon, which it was. But the problem was that because my ex-girlfriend's images were like 6 months old, and this had just made it to the forefront at the Pentagon, this Tic Tac object, they said, this is a newer story. But I said, like my ex said, well, how can it be a new story when that image and that footage from the Pentagon were from 2002, right?
Wow.
My ex-girlfriend's image was from 2022. You know what I mean? So it's like crazy. It's crazy. It's the media doing and saying, sort of like what it wants. And the problem is there's something called a D notice, which is a defense notice. So they'll only say so much. And if they've had a defense notice issued to them, the media, they'll have to basically just say nothing, more or less, or just say, well, we're not sure what it was. And this is a problem, because you're dealing with the Official Secrets Act here, and something, no matter what anybody says, has invaded your airspace in America, same as our airspace in the United Kingdom. Who is it? Who's invaded our airspace?
Yeah, and that's the
This is a big question.
And add to what you just said. I don't know what's scarier, really, to me, whether it's a foreign adversary or maybe the Chinese Communist Party, something they put out, or they have something we don't have, which I kind of doubt that, because the way these objects maneuver, I just don't see how it's possible a human being could survive piloting one of these objects if it was. So then
it's a 2,000 years old design. It's nothing more than an air balloon. By what we saw, the images on television, it's like an air balloon, an hot air balloon. And it's a case of we've got, and if America have got some fantastic high altitude bombers taking some fantastic photography, it's, for goodness sake, it's got millions of pounds worth of satellites that could take a picture of you outside smoking and tell you what pack of cigarettes you're smoking. You know what I mean? Why use a balloon? The only reason why you would use a balloon is for one thing, just to let people know that you're there and you're doing what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's a bit of a
distraction.
Well, not only that, it's like it's sticking one to you, isn't it? Really, it's like saying, "Yeah, it's us," So what? But the problem is, what I've got is this: what was inside that balloon? How are we going to all of a sudden start having a pandemic, a real pandemic, from an airborne substance?
Exactly. That's what I'm worried about, is it being weaponized, or because let's face it, the Chinese Communist Party has already begun buying up all land around all of our military bases over here stateside, which that really raises a lot of questions to me. But then on the other hand, these other objects, they didn't have, I don't believe they were balloons. At least two of them wasn't, for sure.
It's bought governments.
Yeah.
This party has actually bought governments around the world, including mine. I'm telling you now. Everybody, a lot of people in my country realise that the Chinese are running our governments.
Yeah.
It's a fact. It's a fact.
Yeah, it seems that way. It really seems that way, because if you look at all of the people who have, a lot of our corporations and government entities have established all kinds of deals with the CMP, it's really scary, man. But Kalian the alien, I want to give you the floor. Let's hear what you got going on. What do you think about this China balloon? And also, what do you think about this other object that crashed off the coast of Alaska? I'd like to hear all your thoughts.
Well, the balloon thing it's very similar to our balloon that we did back in the 40s, 50s, that we were trying to make a Mactism nuclear bomb. So that concerns me. It's very identical to it.
Right. There's Project not Project Grudge. There's the one that happened in the early 50s that they tried to blame Roswell on, which the name escapes me of the project.
Name escapes me too. I just watched it the other day.
With the high altitude crash test dummies but anyway,
trying atomic, and they were going to go slowly to nuclear, but the project just disappeared. So I'm very wary about the balloon, because they could have changed it to more BioWare.
Yeah.
Or EMP.
Yes, EMP. That's another issue. They were talking about that in the report. Like the EMP could affect our electrical infrastructure, because it will probably shut us down.
Oh, there's no probably about it. It depending on the device, it could be a magic carpet ride, a time machine back to the 1800s. Like that's literally what it could be.
It will reset us back to like 0.1 again.
Yeah, but if they do that, that's the same for everybody.
Yeah.
That's the same for everybody. Apart from if you've got what do you call it, valve radios and sets and what have you, you know, which you know, sort of like is a big question, you know, sort of like why would you do that, you know, sort of like it's like the atomic question: would they use atomic weapons? Doubtful, because nobody wins. The scariest thing for me, to be quite honest, is the biological.
Yes.
Oh God,
You know,
that is scary, man.
That's what worries
Oh,
me.
they thought it was Mogul.
Mogul.
Thank you, Mogul. Thank you.
Michael,
Yeah.
you are the man. You are the man, Michael. I knew there was a reason why I held on to him. This is how good this guy is. He's so good.
He
Anyway.
researched faster than I can.
Everybody researches at their own level. It's like learning, you know, it's like going to school, you know, everybody learns at their own pace and this and that. So it is neither here nor there, but but Kaylin, let's go here for a moment. I want to go here with you for a moment. The object, I remember when this occurred, the first object that was shot down over Alaska, me and you were at work and we were sitting in the break room. And we saw all this stuff on the news.
Yeah.
What were you thinking about that? What were you
I was like, what the heck did they shut down for one? And then I was very worried at first. I'm like, is it actually aliens or what's going on? Is it something? Because they are fully investigating, like, what the heck is it? They're not even calling it a UFO. If my knowledge serves me right, they call it a UAP.
Yeah,
you know?
Same thing though.
No.
Yeah, they changed it because they wanted to change it from the UFO. But
the only
UFO
thing
thing drives me crazy.
This is this stupid thing. It's divide and conquer. You know, this is the military and the government wanting, you know, sort of like to divide and conquer and get people to call it this. The fact is, they don't want people like us involved in researching this subject unless you're an academic, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And an academic working for the government. That's all that's about. And I see these silly people setting these groups up with this silly name. UFOs. It's always been and it always will be. You know what I mean? That's what I've got to say.
That's what it is, an unidentified flying object. It doesn't mean diddly squat what it actually is. It could be a spy device. It could be ETs. It could be anything. It's unidentified, and that's the key right there. And it's a more accurate description than UAP in my personal opinion.
I mean, they're just rebranding it so that the new kids that have grown up on the stigma of UFO aliens, woohoo. But now with the unidentified aerial phenomena, that way they can kind of ascribe it to what Project Blue Book or Alan Hynek was saying before he woke the hell up and realized what was going on. Oh, it's swamp gas, or it's light refracted from the little old lady's litter box that she didn't change, reflected off of Venus. And it's phenomenal.
Michael, I need you to come over and change our litter boxes out when you get done recording tonight.
Well, maybe if I did, you would stop seeing the UFOs, man. You know,
Vince,
Mark, I'm gonna have to leave you for the time being.
That's okay.
Because I didn't realize the time, and I'm supposed to be on another show as well.
That is okay,
so
my brother.
I'll try and get back.
We're glad to have you as for when we had you, and let's make plans to do some more collaborating in the future.
And thanks for having me on the show, and take care.
You too, Russ. Thank you for being with us again, brother.
Good night. God bless.
God bless you. Thank you.
Good night.
All right,
God bless.
my friend.
Good night, man.
Okay, Vince, you're up, my friend. I want to hear Vince's thoughts here. Go ahead, Vince.
Well, I have two thoughts. So first of all, I personally think that the balloons and the other objects are two different events that happen.
I do too.
Because and follow me along with this. So I'm not really worried about balloons, because I look at balloons whenever when people are sending like spy balloons and spy satellites, it's the same thing as hackers. China has hackers, we have hackers, Germany has hackers, everybody's hacking each other. So everybody sends balloons over everybody else's country to find out what they're doing. I mean, that's just been spycraft for years. That's my opinion. I mean, I am kind of like you guys. I would really like to know what was in that balloon. I mean, you're just sending a random balloon and it's floating from Idaho to South Carolina. I'd kind of like to know what the purpose of it was. But
especially with the footage of them retrieving it, there's no one wearing hazmat suits. There's no one geared up. They're just willy-nilly
grabbing it.
Yeah, I'd like to know a little bit more about that. But the other objects. So what struck me about that is the same thing that always strikes me whenever you have UFOs or UAPs or whatever you want to call them these days. So I've been an aviation nut for years. And the one thing that's always consistent is how if you're a commercial pilot, for example, or a military pilot, that they talk in really muted ways. Like they're very vague. I mean, they never really actually say what they see. And I agree with you, Mark. If you're a pilot, same as a soldier, you have to have really sharp eyesight and be able to notice everything. Because when you're in the air, you have to look for other planes or mountains or clouds or any other obstructions that might cause an accident. So you're very aware of what you're seeing. It's no, oh, well, I guess it could have been pill shaped, but maybe it wasn't. I don't really know. That doesn't work if you're a pilot. But the problem is if you talk about these things, then your career is pretty much effectively over.
Yeah.
I mean, you can guarantee that if you're, they'll make it seem like something's the matter with you psychologically.
Yeah.
You didn't see what you saw. And then if you're a civilian pilot, like if you're a general pilot, if you're piloting a little Diamond or a Cessna or something like that, people don't believe you anyway. They just think they're just some crackpot, and they dismiss what you're saying. But pilots have talked about these things for years. And then so a lot of times when either the commercial pilots or the military pilots retire and they're no longer under that scrutiny, their story is a whole lot different. So I would like to hear years from now, when some of these pilots actually retire, what they have to say about it then, because usually they change their tune with that. So that's what I thought was really striking about these objects, is that they're happening a lot, and I think now, I personally think that one was a direct result of the other. So if you know about these high altitude balloons and you realize that they're there, you're going to start looking what else is out there. And I think what's happening is they started looking for these balloons and they found other stuff.
Correct. I agree.
I think it was cause and effect. I think it was a cause and effect. I think now we're in this era where, okay, so we realize that we have this high altitude balloon, which some countries have had these things for years. It's just that you're not aware of them. And
we
so
have
now that you're aware of
them, has them. India has them.
Yeah,
they're all over the place.
And so you start tracking these high altitude things, and then you start seeing other stuff. You're like, oh wait, what's this? That's what I think is happening here. I think they're two entirely different things, but I think one led to the discovery of the other.
I agree, and that makes complete sense. I want to add one thing to what you said, Vince, if you don't mind, brother.
Sure.
When I worked at a Walmart store years ago, I'd say this was about 6 or 7 years ago. I was working by myself in the electronics department, part of the store, and photo lab, and I was processing a gentleman's photos. He was in a wheelchair, this gentleman, and as I was getting his photos put together and packaged up and everything, I just kind of had a nice chatty conversation with this gentleman. He a real nice guy, and he told me that he was a retired airline pilot, and I just froze. I froze like a deer in front of a headlight, and I could not help myself. I looked him dead in the eye and I said, "Sir, if I may be so bold, during your career as an airline pilot, have you ever had an encounter with an unidentified flying object, and what happened afterwards?" And he kind of put his glasses down and he looked up at me on his lap, and he looked up at me and he said, "Not once, but twice." And he said one of the occasions he came out of a cloud bank and there was a massive object that he had to take evasive action. So this object was coming in. This object was like right here. He comes out of the cloud bank and he's like kind of having to do this business. It was chilling to hear his testimony, and of course he couldn't say nothing about it, Vince. He just couldn't. He couldn't say nothing about it. But I just wanted to add to that real quick.
Yeah, sometimes though, I don't know, if you go into some of these smaller airports where a lot of older pilots hang out, every once in a while they'll talk about it's kind of like truckers. Like truckers, if you gain their trust and you're just sitting there listening to them, they'll talk about all the weird stuff that they see and with what they're doing. Pilots are no different. Sometimes, you'll have one, they'll just talk about weird stuff. They're not going to necessarily say, well, these are aliens. They'll just say that they saw something that they just couldn't explain. Like it was just weird. It was the weirdest thing ever, right? Yeah. So I've always been really fascinated by that. I mean, a lot of people think that they might be, pilots' tales or anything like that. But I mean, like I said, pilots have to be pretty sharp. They have to actually be able to see what's happening outside the plane. So,
wow, that's good. But anyway, now it seems like the Navy's become a little bit more liberal about reporting. As a matter of fact, I think some squadrons are actually asking these pilots to report them, or most of them. I think that's their policy now. Am I wrong about that?
Every time I go to talk, he goes to talk.
Oh, I'm
sorry.
Go ahead, Kaylee. Go ahead.
Because I think the reason why is I think there was an incident that happened which one of the fighters almost crashed into one of the unidentified object. So they have to report it now, and they have been catching it on radar, but they can't seem to catch it. Like the Tic Tac, which I've been hearing a lot, that's been speeding like super, super fast. They can't seem to catch it up or get too close to identify it.
Yeah, they've been ever since what occurred with the coming out of the with the USS Nimitz and the gimbal footage and the testimonies of David Fravor and his fellow pilots and things like that. They've been pushing for them to. They've been pushing legislation for them to be able to tell what they've seen and encountered, because now they want to know what's going on, and they can't be ridiculed or harmed or hurt or whatever, that they are protected, so to speak, because of their testimony. They can't be laughed out of they can't be thrown out with the baby in the bathwater anymore, So, yeah, they're pushing for legislation like that, and a lot of those pilots still get some flack in some areas because you still have people that look at it as, oh, you're full of crap, But when you have video and when you have audio and you have radar and multiple eyewitnesses to this thing, it kind of lends even greater credibility to what's going on. Another example of something like that was the Phoenix Lights in '97.
Yep.
You've got 27,000 people that have seen, this object over the night sky between the hours of 6:15 and 9:20 p.m. And then the military wants to try to brush it off as, oh, we were dropping flares at 10 p.m. Well, you still have a 40 to 50 minute discrepancy time frame between what all these other people were seeing, man. So,
what's going on here?
Flares don't move like that either. They move like that. Flares never move like that.
I can tell the difference between flare. Most people, even if you hadn't been in the military, can tell the difference between a flare and something that's stationary or moving horizontally instead of up or down. Like a flare is just going to slowly, gravity is going to do its thing, and it's going to shimmer. But like the Phoenix Lights, for example, those were not flares. I can tell you right now, those are not flares.
Yeah, and flares too. Flares have this really weird kind of eerie light that wasn't that wasn't present with that. Like,
It's raining out.
yeah. So I mean, I shot off enough flares to know what they look like, and those weren't it.
I used to shoot off flare grenades, and one time when I was in the Army, and one time I accidentally burnt down about an acre and a half of dried swampland at Fort Stewart. That was fun.
Oops.
Yeah.
You guys want to hop on bullet point 2?
Yeah, bullet point 2. Let's do bullet point 2.
Begins.
Yeah, let's do bullet point 2,
This is where
Michael, and then we'll go to break, okay?
Begins.
Let's do bullet point 2,
This
and
is
then
where
we'll go
the
to break.
weirdness begins. Okay. This is where the weirdness begins, man. February
Where's the
10th.
weirdness?
Yeah, February 10th at 9:12 p.m. A U.S. fighter jet was an F-22 actually brought down an object over. It broke into pieces.
Can you
and
repeat
was
that?
defined
You
as not
broke
likely
up.
to be a balloon.
Can you
Oh,
go back
sorry.
and repeat that? You broke up. Sorry.
Yeah, man. An F-22 fighter jet brought down an unidentified object over Alaskan waters. The object broke into pieces and was defined as not likely to be a balloon, according to a White House official and the pilot. The Department of Defense and the White House said that the object was the size of 2 small cars. Also, while it was detected on that Thursday, Friday night, Alaskan time, and was headed toward the North Pole. They first detected it on Thursday night, but shot it down on Friday. Also, like an hour or so after shooting down that object, NASA and the Navy also were reporting that there were lights, like varying green lights and beams of light that were being shot into the water around Hawaii.
Yeah, you
Which
told me about
later-
that.
Which later, after they investigated, it said it did not come from any satellite that they have in the airspace at the current time. So they don't know where that came from.
Well, a satellite's not going to shoot down a green beam of light.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly. But they were not only getting the green light being shot into the water, they were receiving varying blue, white, and or red lights at the same time coming out of the water. So there was something communicating
Beaming.
back and forth with beams out of the waters around Hawaii. And then it stopped after about 30 to 40 minutes.
Now, did this take place? Okay, so I'm just trying to get a frame of reference at a time, and as far as the time frame here, did this happen around the same time we shot down the object on the 10th?
After.
This happened afterwards,
Right
on
after.
the same day.
Mhm.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, so that's what we have on that one. And,
Okay. I want to get some thoughts on this. Kaylee and the Alien, you're up, brother.
Okay. So I didn't quite hear this one before, so I'm like kind of flabbergasted about it. So it could be that they are communicating in Hawaii. I don't know why they're near Hawaii. Maybe they're for a good reason. It's never a coincidence. And they may have the ability to have ships that can go submarine. If they're communicating back in the air and back in the water, that's what you said, Michael?
Mhm.
That they have this technology that can fly in space and go underwater, which makes me a little worried.
Yeah, the speaking of that, the Tic Tac has been, according to the pilots that filmed it and everything like that, it's considered it can go in both the water and the air, because when it went off radar, it went underwater.
Oh, good. Oh,
Yeah.
good. Oh, good.
We're going to talk about that actually in our second segment at some point, where these objects are hiding, where they're coming from, and all this other stuff. I have some ideas. I want to throw at you guys later.
The dual medium is what they call it.
Kalian.
Yes.
Now, as far as the you remember we were sitting in the break room at our job that night, on the night of the 10th, February to the 10th. And that was a very, very dramatic night. I remember you just kind of sat down next to me and didn't say a word to me at first. And I think you even had your headphones on, maybe, but your eyes were glued to the TV. And at the same time, Michael was texting me. You were texting me at that point, Michael. Mm-hmm. I was getting information, and that's when you sent me that text message about the whole incident over Hawaii.
Yeah.
And then this was we were learning all about this. I'm thinking, okay, well, they shot something down.
I took my earbuds off. I think I remember it correctly. Like, I was listening to I was researching stuff while on break, and then after that, I just happened to look up, and then I'm like, what's going on? What? And I took my earbuds and listening. I was just listening and watching the TV, and I'm like, what on earth did they shut down? Or what the heck is going on? And then I noticed you look at your phone and you're like, Michael just texted me. I'm like, what? Uh-oh.
Yeah, it was a very dramatic evening. I had a couple of my friends texting me like, Mark, what's going on? Mark, did you hear about this? Mark. So, Vince, I wanna jump to you for a moment. Now, Vince, my understanding was that this object over Alaska was shot down over frozen waters. Have you heard? What do you know? Is there anything else you can add to this incident, or do you know if they actually have successfully recovered all this object, or what do you know about this particular incident?
I don't really know that much about that. I mean, I don't really know what they recovered. I guess I kind of know as much as you do on that, because as I said, I wasn't. I really haven't had, because I've been working a lot. I haven't really had time to sit down and dig into the details. But a really interesting thing about both Alaska and Hawaii, because I've heard stories before about a lot of UFO sightings in Alaska, UFO sightings in Hawaii. And so consider this. This is my theory on this.
Okay.
So Alaska and Hawaii actually sit within the ring of fire, right? Like just a lot of volcanic systems, a lot of magma vents underneath the ocean. And so to me, what that says is, when you use the Earth's heat, the Earth's, magma as maybe an energy source, that's possible. So, I've heard tales about underwater aliens and underwater cities and all that type of stuff. And that would make sense to actually have these things sitting on these vents. It's an easy supply of energy, right? And so this is why it isn't, whenever you hear like strange things over Alaska, for example, you hear that a lot. Like if you know anything about Alaska, even Alaskans will say this, that sometimes they just see a lot of weird stuff in the sky in Alaska.
Well, they have what they call the Alaskan Triangle up there. Right. They have their own triangle area, and I think it's legit, every bit as legit as the Coal Mountain Triangle here in North Georgia.
But if you actually think about it, the Ring of Fire has a lot of triangles. Like they have a lot of them. So.
Oh wow.
Excuse me. They have a lot of triangles. So I think this is what's really happening here. I mean, that's my theory, but. Other than that, I don't really know that much else about it. I just heard. Is it the one where they said it was there was one of them that was it was octagon shaped.
Yeah, we're going to get to, that's going to be in the next. Okay. Michael's going to jump on that in one of the next bullet points. I think this is a good spot to take a break. Why don't we take a break, and when we come back, Michael, lead us onward in this conversation on next bullet point. And then after we're done covering all this, I got some ideas I want to throw at you and the listeners. But let's take a break. You're listening to Project Stargate Friends Research, and we are having our roundtable discussion on the events of the prior week, and we will be right back. All right. Well, welcome back to Project Stargate Friends Research. We're here with, today I'm here with Kaylee and the Alien, Michael and Vince. Welcome back, gentlemen. And we are discussing having a roundtable conversation about the recent events of unidentified objects being shot down, and the China spy balloon that was shot down also off the coast of South Carolina, which we think, as we said earlier, we don't think the two things have anything to do with each other per se, but we think that one allowed the other incidents to be discovered. I think that was a wonderful point you guys made. But there was yet another incident the next day on February 11th over the Yukon Territory in Canada. Michael, tell us what happened.
On February 11th at about 10:40 p.m., an American F-22 downed an object over the Yukon Territory, and this object was described as cylindrical and smaller than the previously identified balloon, where that balloon was the size of 3 buses. But this object was slightly smaller than that. It was picked up on the radar by Canadian officials, but they are still unclear as to exactly what that object was. According to the Prime Minister Trudeau, he stated that it had violated Canadian airspace, so he ordered it to be shot down. Called in some American assistance from the nearest base that could, get up there and take care of it, and they did. So that object, like I said, or as previously stated, it's cylindrical, so it's obviously cigar shaped, like other varying craft through history and things like that.
That's been a very common shape, fairly common.
Vincent, Vincent had made mention that he didn't know exactly what if anything had been said about the object over Alaska. Well, that object still has not been detailed as to what the hell it was.
I don't think any of them have.
They've still not said anything. Well, the one on the 11th and the one on the 12th and the one that also occurred on the 12th over Lake Huron in Michigan, which we'll get to that in a minute. Those have been identified by the pilots and stuff like that. So
the
or
one
they've
over
been
the Yukon
described
was
what they look
cylindrical?
like.
So the one over the Yukon was
Yes.
cylindrical. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it was a cylindrical or cigar shaped, which is common for certain types of craft. But yeah, that's pretty much what.
So we had so it was a cigar shaped or possibly lozenge shaped or not lozenge, tic tac shaped object, and has as far as I'm assuming that they've already recovered this object. I would assume that by now they have probably well recovered the object or whatever it is, and probably are analyzing it. I really hope that some more information comes out about this, because that object is very, like you said, is very similar to many different UFOs seen throughout history, and it also is synonymous with what our Navy pilots encountered over the coast of Catalina Island in California. But at any rate, that's really fascinating. Vince, well, I'll give you the floor to respond on this.
So I actually want to touch on the shapes of a lot of these objects that they see, the cylindrical shape. So I'm gonna give you all a useless astronautical fact. All right. So in space, ships can be any shape you want. They could be a jigsaw puzzle. It doesn't matter because there's no air. But the thing about it is, if you're going from space to like an atmosphere, you need to have some type of aerodynamic shape. So that actually sounds kind of interesting if these are, because a cylindrical cigar-shaped or pill-shaped object will be able to be aerodynamically sound in the Earth's atmosphere to move as fast as it does. So I've always thought that was really interesting whenever I hear a lot of these stories where you have like a cigar-shaped or pill-shaped object. So, but
It really-
you also
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
go ahead.
No.
No,
What were
well,
you gonna ask me?
you also have other objects too that say that they're encased in some type of bubble, or it's oval shaped where you can see something inside of it, or like something that is squared inside, like a pulsing square shape or something like that, but it's encased in some type of oval or circular or cylindrical container or something like that. But yeah, or the UFOs where it's it's a tapers into the ends and things like that. Looks like a saucer, but
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
fascinating. Oh, that's all I had. I didn't have anything to add. I just
Oh,
thought
okay.
that was really, really fascinating hearing about the shapes of
Oh,
these
okay.
objects.
Yeah, definitely, man. Kaylin, you're up, Kaylin.
The shapes, yeah. To add on to Vincent, the shapes are very unique. It reminds me of a couple of sci-fi cartoons that I remember growing up that maybe some of the artists are telling us something, that maybe these things exist for a good reason.
Well, is it, Kaylin, to add to what you just said, almost every account of a UFO sightings at close range, a lot of the people say the same thing, and that is these objects seem to they usually don't see any rivets on it or seams or anything. Yeah. It's like the object was kind of just pressed into existence somehow. Like everything inside of it can morph. I think these devices, and or at least some of them, have the ability to morph. And then that brings up another whole question: is how are they defying our gravity? How are they dealing with the problem of gravity in our planet? What type of propulsion is this? Mess around with relativity, which I think it probably is. I think this is something based on relativity, or something maybe even beyond that, some 0-point energy of some kind.
My best option to my best make it compared it to another show would be Doctor Who, when the TARDIS is actually, you see its base form. It doesn't have any seams or anything. It's like in one piece. So it could be like they were telling us, like, hey, these things do exist. We just don't know what they can do.
Well,
Yeah.
too, as a side with Doctor Who, the reason that Doctor Who's ship looks like a phone booth is because the chameleon circuit has malfunctioned and he just never fixed it.
I like Tom Baker.
I don't want to fix it.
I'm a Tom Baker fan.
I am.
Yeah. Tom Baker was always my guy.
He was my guy.
Third Doctor. Third Doctor is my favorite.
But
John Pertwee was cool.
James Bond, basically the
Sylvester McCoy was really cool. Paul McGann was kind of weird, but in terms of like new Who, I will forever love Christopher Eccleston. Yeah. But David Tennant did it for me, and Matt Smith was all right. Matt Smith was all right. Peter Capaldi was cool, and the chick, the female doctor, I can't remember, Jodie Whittaker. I can't remember her name. Yeah, Jodie Whittaker. She was great. She flipped everything over. Great. But anyway, back to what we're talking about.
Yes, yeah.
But the actual TARDISes look like something that you would. They look like the USS Sulaco from Aliens.
Yeah.
Like the Space Marine gun ship that looks like a gigantic fucking shotgun. But anyway, but yeah, like Vincent was saying, the aerodynamics and stuff like that, and you were mentioning the propulsion systems. It's magnetics and like 0-point energy style things where you take a magnet and another magnet and they push off of each other and they maintain some type of centrifugal force, and it creates energy off of that. And to a lot of people, when they report UFOs, they wobble. They don't sit like this, but they kind of
wobble.
and the reason behind that is the centrifugal force that's inside it. And then when the drive engages, the front angles down, and it wobble, 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 bam. So who knows? Yes.
Applaud.
That was because I like what you said, Michael. But there you go, man. There's you another one.
Another one would be lost my train of thought. With these Tic Tacs that have, it reminds me with a lot of sci-fi stuff like that, and with that magnetism part, Nikola Tesla was trying to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then
when he was trying to create 0-point energy and stuff like that
he was going to try to share the information, but most of his equipment gets seized by the government, so we don't know if it got.
Well, not only the government, but his wife also burned a lot of it because he was kind of a whore. He was a rather promiscuous individual, and she burned like 40% of his crap.
Wow, that's an interesting fact.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
This is information I didn't know.
Yeah, his wife
I didn't know that
burned
either.
a lot. Yeah,
I didn't even think he got married.
My wife would burn everything I own.
He kept his personal life and his work life totally separate.
Wow.
But because of him going around and talking to people in science and stuff, you know how women were back then, where, what are physics?
Okay. Like with Einstein.
That was a good hit.
Centrifugal fuck. Wow. Force. You're so smart. Yeah.
Every action has a reaction.
Yeah. And it involves getting your shit burned.
February 12th, Lake Huron.
Yeah, Lake Huron. February 12th, the same day. These two objects occurred. These two incidents occurred in the same day, within like 5 hours of each other. Okay, so an object appeared over Montana on Saturday morning, and then it appeared again on Sunday, where it was still in Montana at like 9:30 in the morning on Sunday. Then by 1:40 in the afternoon, it appeared again over Lake Huron off of Michigan. This is the octagonal craft or object that they were talking about. And according to the pilot, he said that the structure itself was flying at about 20,000 feet. It had an octagonal appearance, and it had what appeared to be strings or cables attached to it, which is kind of weird. But if it was carrying anything, it had no discernible payload. It could have been. Other than that, they also believe that the object that appeared over Montana is the same object that appeared over Lake Huron. But, considering how quickly these objects are said to travel, that's feasible.
I mean,
but.
And this one was, from the information I got from NPR.com, on a news article that was posted. Let me just kind of give a reference. We give these people a reference. It was last updated on February 13th, just not too long ago. It was written by a gentleman named Bill Chappell. Wrote a really nice breakdown of the general things that happened. Now, for what I learned in this article, when I was reading this article, the object that was shot down allegedly over Lake Huron, the object was up around 20,000 feet, according to the article, soaring near the eastern portion of Michigan's Upper Peninsula, and it was shot down over Huron. about 15 nautical miles east of the Upper Peninsula, and it said that this object was in fact an octagonal shape. Is that correct? Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm.
And which like what?
Yes, it was an octagonal shaped object.
I just wanted to cut in for 1 second. Go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
Yeah, it was an octagonal shaped object. That is correct. Yeah, and the object that appeared over Montana was also octagonal, which led them to believe that it was the same object that appeared over Montana, which caused Montana and Michigan to both close their airspaces temporarily.
I wonder what the time frame from the first sighting was to where they shot, if it is the same object that was seen over Montana, and it very well may have been. I wonder how long, what the time differential is between when it was sighted over Montana to it got to over the lakes where it was shot down. Do you by chance know how long it took it to get from there to Huron?
No, there's been no real detail of that. The only real details is that initially it showed up on Saturday morning and then disappeared from radar. And then it appeared again at 9:30 a.m. in Montana on Sunday morning. And they went to go shoot it down, and it disappeared from their radar after evading the planes that were sent to shoot it down. And then it appeared, because of its shape and color and things like that, it appeared over Lake Huron. So it being octagonal is probably why they're considering it to be the same object, but there's a possibility too that it probably isn't, or it could very well be.
What
they shot down that one. Yeah.
Now, didn't they? Now, from my understanding,
it had some type of cables.
They didn't. Their first attempt, they used a Sidewinder missile. I heard that. Now, I haven't confirmed this, but I've heard that they missed it. Somehow the object evaded it, or that somehow the pilot just missed it. I seriously doubt a trained pilot.
Yeah, it evaded. It evaded. Yeah.
Wow.
And two, another thing that they were mentioning too is that when they tried to intercept it with, guns as opposed to missiles, that the closer they got to the object, all of their instruments began to malfunction.
Oh. Wow. Where'd you get this at? I'm just curious.
That came off of Politico.
Politico?
Yeah.
Wow.
That came off Politico.
Yeah. There is a triangle area over the Great Lakes. Great Lakes have a triangle area.
Oh yeah.
I think they just call it the Great Lakes Triangle or something like that. That's fascinating, dude.
Apparently the closer they got to the object to intercept or get better views of it and things, that to started to screw up. So
kind of breaking up there.
They kind of you can't maintain. How like if your flight systems, start screwing up and you can't maintain altitude and your plane's about to go down because of it,
right.
You get away from whatever's causing the problem. So.
Wow. Dang, that's very dramatic. I think that's a very dramatic chain of events, man.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, with that one, that was pretty much the end of what was really, big news stories in terms of that. But there were other objects like over the last couple of days that, like I had mentioned before, had been sighted over Beijing and a couple of military bases over there in China, as well as they had a couple of incidents of 4 or 5 objects that had showed up over Oregon. And they were just kind of there cruising along, and then they dipped out. So
wow,
they showed up on radar for a few minutes, and then they took off. So
I bet MUFON right now they're as busy as you can possibly imagine. I've got a meeting tomorrow night with some of my local chapter members, and looking forward to being in that conversation. But I want to hand this out, Vincent. I'd like to get your thoughts on this.
I guess my question was the only real question I have about it, because the octagon shaped ones was what I heard about, but I actually only heard about it being over Lake Huron. I didn't know it started in Montana. So were they clocking the speed? Like, how many knots is this thing moving?
Somewhere
If
in Montana, I think they were saying that it was probably moving somewhere at about Mach 2, almost 3.
Really?
Holy crap!
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
fast.
Wow.
I mean, we don't have
it was moving pretty quick.
I don't think
We
we
can
have
only
drones
go
that
Mach
move like
1.
that.
Yeah,
Mach 2 is
I
impossible.
don't think we have very many aircraft that can go that fast, sustained
Yeah,
like
I mean
that.
There's
if I'm
only
not
one
mistaken,
craft
the
that got decommissioned.
SR-71 could go Mach 2, wasn't it? Or
The Blackbird could go Mach 3, but it could.
yeah.
But that was the only one they could have.
Yeah, but
they only
even
made
the
3, but
Blackbird
2 of them
would
got
only go.
destroyed.
But even the Mach that wasn't sustained. It could only do that for like a certain period of time.
Only a certain time. Yeah,
it gets really hot if you're going that fast in air.
Yeah.
Like, so that's remarkable if it was moving that fast.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
wow.
once it achieved, I think it was like Mach 2 or 3, then it disappeared from radar and then appeared over Michigan. So, yeah.
Well, then that would make sense if it's moving that fast. That would make sense that it shows up in Montana and then it's over Lake Huron. That it wouldn't take that long to get there.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, probably 20, 30 minutes, maybe,
Yeah.
at that speed.
Yeah, that's remarkable. And then if it's traveling that much distance without overheating or destroying itself, that's also pretty remarkable. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that was my only question. I feel I learned a lot tonight. Really.
Yeah, and that one was also it was flying at about 20,000 feet in Michigan. So then the reason why they shot it down is because they considered it to be a threat to civilian airspace. So
how did they eventually shoot it down? Like, what did they use? I know you said the
Sidewinder missile.
Sidewinder missile.
So the second one got it.
Yeah, the second one got it. The first one missed it. They had to recover the other one over. I think it was. I don't know if it was Lake Huron. Also, it was either Lake Huron or Lake Michigan. I'm not really sure. But yeah,
they had it over Lake Huron. Yeah.
That means it was doing some serious evading. I mean, I'm gonna call. I really, with all my being, think that this was, at least this one was definitely an anomalous paranormal event of some kind. I really am starting to lean towards that. And Kaylin, did you have a few thoughts you wanted to add to this?
Yeah, I wanted to see how fast it was going. Like he was in Montana all the way to the lake. But going to Mach 2, what's to say it could go even faster and they're not even realizing it?
Well, it's interesting you said that, Kaylin. A UFO sighting I had personally with Greg's ship. I wish Greg was with us tonight. He's with us in spirit. But at any rate, this UFO I was seeing like every night for like 2 months. One summer, and Greg and I got off work this is back when we worked together at a retail store. We got off work, and he agreed to come follow me to my house, and because I said I can pretty much guarantee you will see something, and sure enough, he did. The object manifested. It just kind of appeared in there, out of thin air, and then it would go, and then it would reappear somewhere else. It's like it's able to bilocate, or it could have been zipped off so fast I couldn't see it, but what's the difference? The question is, what type of propulsion are we dealing with? That's where it all boils down to.
Yeah, is it using our Earth's magnetic field as a way to use energy? That's a theory I've always had with the UFOs. So like, have they figured out how to use our Earth's magnetism energy to fly across?
Yeah, according to what's his name, Michael Schratt.
Oh yeah, I know who that is.
Yeah, he made mention that based on things that he has seen and read, is that they're using magnetics to do these things. And for propulsion, they're using a type of magnetics, and they're using another magnetic system that creates kind of a field around, like a torsion field around a person, around the cockpit areas or whatever, so that you're completely separate from the outside forces of the object or craft that you may be in. So they have around that allows them to move for propulsion. Then you have the craft, and then you have another magnetic field or force inside of that maintains you outside of the G's and stuff like that. I don't know how that works. I'm not a pilot. I'm not a physics or scientist or anything like that. So that shit is Greek to me. But
you know what? Vince is well versed in the force of science. Vince, how do you, according to what you know about the laws of physics, how could you cancel G-force? Is it possible to cancel G-force inside of a craft like that when it's going 15,000 miles an hour and making turns without stopping? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, they have theories on it, but there's not really been anybody. There's no scientist on this planet, at least as far as I know, who's been able to actually achieve that. I mean, they have theories about that stuff, anti-grav and like you said, the magnetic fields and things like that. Warp bubbles, stuff like that. But it's not anything other than theory. So when you see these objects and they turn on a dime, like they're turning at right angles and these weird angles. Yeah, that's actually pretty remarkable. So,
so technically, if you're looking, and like you say, those things are theoretical with us right now.
Yeah.
But then the ability to go to the moon was once theoretical as well. So, with that in mind, if you're looking at a civilization or a species that has advanced far enough, say as a lot of whistleblowers and informants and things like that say that the Pleiadians, as an example, they exist as being 50 to 100,000 years more advanced than us. So they've figured out how to consciously control everything with their minds,
So telekinetically.
Yeah. And they're able to use mental telepathy and whatnot to bilocate and things like that and move themselves physically through physical, existing space from one point to another without having to move. Like you're doing astral projection, but you're moving your whole body in one point, So,
I'm sorry.
No, so technically, have
Hey, you broke up, brother. Can you?
Yeah, you did.
I want
a theoretical thing like that. Did I break up?
Yeah, you broke up.
You
We
broke
lost
up
that entire. We lost that entire statement.
They don't want to hear his thoughts. That's what that's going on.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Thoughts.
Yeah. So
we'll blame it on Kaylee and the alien. We'll just blame it on Kaylee.
So that stuff is theoretical with us right now, right? So at the same time, being able to travel into space was once theoretical. So you have a species or a civilization that is, as an example, the Pleiadians. They supposedly are 500 to 100,000 years more advanced than us, right? So who's to say that they weren't able to figure out how to do exactly that for travel?
Well, actually, there was an astrophysicist named Nikolai Kardashev, and so he created these levels of civilization. So you have type 1 civilization where the citizens they learn how to use the planet as the energy for the whole planet. And then type 2, it goes on like type 2, they know how to use a star, and type 3, they know how to use the galaxy. Actually, I think right now there's about 6. They have 6 levels, like they've come up with 6 levels. And so where we sit is we're barely a 1. We're like 0.
We're barely a type 1
6.
civilization.
Yeah, we're like 0.6 or something like that. Like
Yeah.
we've gone into space, but our propulsion in space is really primitive. That type of thing. So I agree with what you're saying. I mean, for us, Arthur C. Clarke said that advanced technology looks like magic to a primitive civilization. Well, paraphrasing it. But for us, it's theory. We don't have any air, spacecraft or aircraft that can do any of those kinds of things right now.
Yeah.
But obviously, clearly, it must be possible because we're sitting here looking at these things through these really weird angles that would, if it was an object that we were doing, it would flatten us inside. I mean, you'd open it up, it'd just be goo.
Yeah.
So
we would liquefy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. I have something I wanted to bring up, and I want to get all of your thoughts on this. So, there's so many hypotheses as to what type of intelligence would be visiting us. And Vince and we've had some pretty deep conversations over the last year or two, about a lot about this type of stuff. But the question is, where are these things from? And who are they? What are they? And where are they from? And there's a lot of possibilities with this that I keep an open mind to. There's, of course, the ET hypothesis. There's that hypothesis. There's also an extra. There's like ultra terrestrial hypothesis, I think they call it. And what I think is likely going on. Because if and this goes back to if the Big Bang Theory is accurate, if that's how the universe was in fact created, that means that probably space is expanding, galaxies are expanding, right? And so that would pose a problem getting, even with advanced technology, with it infinitely moving away from where it was before, when the beings left their star system or whatever to come here. So what I think it may be going on, I think that there is I think that there are several different types of beings besides us. I think there's angels. I think they got their own thing going on, and I think they're each aliens, for lack of a better term, they're alien to us. So it's a fitting term. These alien beings of whatever they are, whoever they are, wherever they're from. I think that they do have interdimensional abilities, and I think that they have set up shop in our star system in various places. I think that they are well established underneath our oceans, because these craft have demonstrated many times in the past the ability to, with impunity, go in and out of our water like there's nothing there. Yes, and
transmedium.
I think that they've also set up shop in some of the nearby close planets, and maybe even our moon. Kayleen, the alien, I want to start with you, Kayleen. I want to get your thoughts on that, and then we'll go to Vince, and then Michael, I'll give you the final word on it.
Okay.
With this going on, and to say that if they're setting up shop because they want to try to go back home, why are they being secretive? That's my biggest question.
Well, if they want to go home, like I said, we don't know how it's precisely 100% definitively how the universe was created, but what it is a viable theory that either one way or another the universe is expanding, and if that's true, I don't think it's possible it would be possible for them to get back to their galaxy. If they're in fact from another galaxy, then they also could be from our galaxy somewhere else using some kind of hyperdimensional travel.
Or it could be that my thoughts is if they are super highly advanced, they could be a ancient civilization from the past, like with Admiral Byrd when he went down to Antarctic, and he said he found people and the amount of resource over there in Antarctic. And the moment he came back, he was told to be quiet about it.
Yes, they secretized that a lot. They actually did. That's a good point, man. Good point, brother. Vincent, listen, I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Oh yeah, we used to have some really mind blowing conversations about this. So
We sure did.
Okay, so I think these are one of the things, because you guys said you're going to do CE5 stuff, and CE5 actually touches on what I'm about to say. So there are two things. So in astronomy, astrophysics, there's the multiverse theory, to where you have, you have many different versions of maybe our universe or multiple universes, or however that works. So there's that. Then there's also, in quantum physics, they believe that space, as we know it, is consisting of 11 dimensions. So some of the theories I've heard about these, because actually CE5 is one of several of the contact, a lot of the contact practices, like through meditation. And so they say one of the things that you will encounter, some of these beings that you'll encounter, like you said, are ultra terrestrial. They're not even in our dimension or universe. They're just, they're in another one of the either countless multiverses that we're in, or they're able to move in directions in space that we're not aware of, because we're just three-dimensional objects in a four-dimensional universe.
Yes.
And fractal beings.
Yeah, that type of stuff. So I think, we've actually, because, Mark and I, we've had shows on ghosts, and actually, this is how I found out about Barry Taft's book, because he touches on these things too. I think that what we call the paranormal and extraterrestrials are kind of like two sides. They're two sides of the same coin. I mean, all of these things are interconnected. So you have beings moving in and out of particular dimensions or universes, or levels of reality. However we want to describe it. So I think that's partially what's happening sometimes, because sometimes these things, people encounter these things and they just seem to just come out of nowhere. They just materialize in front of people. You know what I mean? So,
we could do a whole show on that. I think that's a great thing you brought up, man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but go ahead.
No. I was actually done. That was my point. But it's like I said, Mark, when we would have these, just when we would be working at Amazon and we're just, shooting the breeze and we're talking about this stuff, we would have these same type of conversations that, these are, we thought that these things were one and the same. Like, you're kind of looking at the same thing, not necessarily a ghost, but just a being that is able to manipulate reality in ways we're not aware of.
I'll never forget that night we were working together, and we haven't been introduced to each other yet. But I was walking behind you, and you had your little backpack, and I could see you had a book on astrophysics, and my nerdy brain went into 5 million directions. And I remember saying, "Hey, man, I saw you were interested in such and such. Are you interested in this, and that too?" I'm yeah, well, I'm a podcaster, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's just like fate was there for us,
Well, and the reason I read that, I was reading it, well, there were two reasons I was reading that book, because, warehouse work can be mind-numbingly boring. But then the other thing is, I think about these types of things, like, quantum physics. Quantum physics, in a lot of ways, some of the theories, they lend themselves to the existence of ghosts and whatever we're calling them, spirits, that type of stuff. So, in you have a universe that we live in a universe we don't necessarily understand. There's probably a lot of things that are possible. So,
I believe, my religious beliefs personally, it's just me personally, I believe that there's no end to what can be created by the Creator.
We've talked about that too.
Yeah.
Oh, we talked about that. Like Howard Storm's, his podcast is when I really started to begin to think about it. I mean, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole for this podcast, because we could, but when I listened to his podcast, when I was listening to his podcast and the way that he was describing his experience, and actually, I'm gonna be honest with you, I still go back and watch that a few times, because I was like really, really fascinated by that.
We should have him back on sometime and just
Oh,
talk more about near-death experiences.
Yeah,
that'd be
let me
fun.
know when you do, because I would love to talk to him.
Yeah, he told. I spoke to him last summer, and he told me he seemed like he was doing well. He's got some ministry he's been doing down in South America, trying to help people who are like poor people and people who are starving half to death and stuff like that. So he's doing some nice work down there. But he said he'd be perfectly willing to come back on the program sometime, and I think it'd be fruitful. I think it'd be a really good conversation because I've been. There's a lot of near-death experience cases I've been personally wanting to talk about. Just haven't had the opportunity or time to talk about them. Some remarkable cases that suggest that back up the multidimensional build theory of our universe. So that'd be awesome.
Yeah, because he touched on that a little bit too, like when he was during his podcast. That's what really struck me about what he was talking about. And I think. If you're deeply religious or you're not religious at all, I actually think that you can still, appreciate what he was talking about with that. Though.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, well, it fundamentally changed him. Like every other account of near-death experiences, in some high level or another, these experiences fundamentally change people. There's no denying. It changed my uncle. It's just fascinating stuff. And this is like Kalian said, this is just a whole other podcast in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, man.
We could be talking all night about this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Or into the weekend if we let it go down that rabbit hole, which we usually end up doing that anyway. So
I know there's so many. I don't know how many times we've been having a meeting or whatever, and then I'm just like, oh my god, I should have hit the record button. I mean, it's just the way you guys eloquently put things sometimes. And I'm talking about all of you. You guys are some of the best partners I could have, and I'm very, very grateful for all of you. And I just enjoy my research with you, and you guys made this a great conversation tonight, and I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. No problem. Yeah, there's stuff that we're truth seekers, so we're trying to find the truth.
And so our listeners, that's why you're listening or watching this on YouTube. If you enjoyed this video and this conversation, all you can do to support, if you want to support us, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. That little simple act would help us more than you would imagine. And eventually we're going to
click that little bell.
Yes, the bell.
Yeah, bell.
Ding,
ding.
Yeah, the ding dong.
So
click that
ding,
bell.
Ding, let you know. Yeah.
Anyway, that was a great conversation. We'll be back soon. Today was just it was a time we needed to talk about the events of the prior week. This is historical, and you're listening to Project Stargate Fringe Research, and I'm your host, Mark Brenner, and it was nice having you all here today, and I hope, and this is Mark Brenner again, signing off. We'll see you soon.